If you poke around at the Yu-Gi-Oh community, it won't be long until you inevitably run across someone yearning for the days of yore when Yu-Gi-Oh games had stories and you collected cards piecemeal like a role-playing adventure. Some people have specific nostalgia for Forbidden Memories, others for Duelist of the Roses, even for others for games like the World Championship Series. However, in my own experience, I have always witnessed a great fervor for a trio of games released for the PlayStation Portable. These games allowed a player to become their own transfer student to Duel Academy and become friends with all the major crew from the anime like Jaden, Chaz, Alexis, and many, many others. These games have a title that also invokes an immediate response to those who hold them in great regard: Tag Force. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX would end up with 4 games in this lineage, although one of them doesn't bear the name. More on that later. As the name might suggest to the astute consumer, these games had one major differentiator from the rest of the crowd: tag duels. In these tag duels, you pair up with your chosen partner and partake in duels using each other's cards on the same field. So basically, you go, the opponent goes, and then your teammate gets to take their turn while using the cards you have already established the prior turn. Same goes for the enemy. But before we get too lost in the mechanics, let's take a look at the real-life game pieces you could own for yourself by purchasing any one of these games. The promos for this time around have a number of nuances here, so if you like the physical cards section of these videos, get ready for this one. Tag Force 1 had Phantom Beast Crosswing, Phantom Beast Wildhorn, and Phantom Beast Thunder Pegasus. These 3 cards were designed to interact with Gazelle, the King of Mythical Beasts, specifically, which is why Gazelle now has additional text underneath its flavor text indicating it is always treated as a Phantom Beast. None of these cards would ever glimpse the tournament scene, and generously, Wildhorn may have seen attention on the playground since it deals piercing damage. The Phantom Beast cards in general actually became pretty popular in Speed Duel for a while, but even then, it was not these cards. In the beginning of Destiny, you got Dark Lord Nurse Reficule, then localized as the Nurse Reficule the Fallen One, Dark Cure, and Brutal Potion. These 3 cards are meant to synergize in that they deal with gaining life, which Nurse turns into damage, and gaining attack when that damage is dealt. The 2 trap cards might as well not exist, but Nurse became the centerpiece of a popular life point burn strategy due to its effect to turn any gained life points by your opponent into damage. Many people remember this card had its name changed to fall in line with the Dark Lord archetype, but that was actually always the case in Japanese. It just didn't matter until 2016 with the printing of Destiny Soldiers and the other Dark Lord cards. In Tag Force 2, you would receive Mad Reloader, Dark Bribe, and Chaos Burst. Dark Bribe would become the standout of the set, being able to nullify a trap effect at an opportune time and at spell speed 3, or counter speed, often meaning the opponent could not respond. The other 2 cards I have never personally seen anywhere, but they are not as wasted effort as other promotional cards have been in the past, so maybe you've been hit with a nasty Chaos Burst in your time. Tag Force 2 also had a guidebook in Japan that had a promo, as they do, and it was Phantom of Chaos. That card would eventually come to the TCG as a promo card in the special edition of Gladiator's Assault. Alright, and here's the funny one. Tag Force 3 never released outside of Japan and Europe. The game came with Red Eyes Wyvern, Gallus the Star Beast, and Darkness Destroyer. Wyvern happens to be among my favorite arts in the game, but otherwise had extremely limited application. Gallus, though, became a rank 3 free agent, finding itself in decks looking to make Leviair worldwide. Fun fact, for whatever reason, this game had factory errors in certain ways of production, so sometimes they came with the old set of promos from Tag Force 2. Reportedly, you were able to contact Konami and exchange them if you mailed in your proof of purchase, just like the Dark Paladin debacle of yore. The guidebook promo for this game had a copy of White Knight Queen. The original PSP version of this game arrived on September 14th, 2006, but that is actually not the version we're covering here. You see, in a strange move, Konami decided Tag Force 1 would actually make for a great release on a home console like the PS2. This version would actually come out worldwide, meaning in all regions, you could buy this game twice. Once on PSP, and once on PS2. The PS2 version has a couple of added features, mostly utilizing the PS2's connectivity with the PSP to get more cards. So, the grand thrust of Tag Force 1 is this. You join Duel Academy as a Slifer Red student and hang out with various supporting characters from the GX anime. You initially select one of a list of 7 to be your first tag partner, but please note at this point that they are not literally your tag partner yet. You see, you have to level up their affection first. After you spend some time becoming best buds with everybody except Jaden, probably. Who would want to be friends with that guy? What a dork. You will eventually come upon the month of July, in which you participate in the school's much-awaited tag tournament. When you win, because you have to, you and your tag partner, assigned by the game based on affection, mostly, are given 2 spirit keys to protect from the ghoulish Shadow Riders. However, since this is a tag duel game, they have modified the story and compelled the other characters who are not your tag partner to duel against you with the Shadow Riders through brain manipulation. So basically, the game is split into 3 parts: getting to know everyone and getting cards, the tag tournament, and fighting the Shadow Riders. Once you complete the game for the first time, you are rewarded upon replay by choosing one of the chapters and realizing you can now tag up with almost anyone who has a portrait. If you ask someone to partner with you in Chapter 1, they will be your partner for the other 2 parts as well. The actual speed of gameplay is where most critical complaint comes from on these games, and it is especially relevant for this one. There is no debate to be had on this aspect, and I believe pretty much everyone agrees on this. Tag duels are slow, and take too long. Each character has a whole host of animations reacting to each action in a duel and narrating their turns, just like an episode of the cartoon. While this is technically impressive and even a neat idea for narrative immersion for big Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime fans, you really find yourself getting tired of it pretty fast. Luckily, many of the animations can be turned off, but then it feels like you're depriving yourself of one of the features used as a selling point for this game, and the rest of them. Tag Force also returns to a custom pack loadout of how to get cards. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I am no fan of this, but it is well themed at least. Packs still start off too weak, but I've harped on this melody for far too long. I really enjoy the little dialogue and conversational exchanges in the game because they really evoke the attitudes established by the show. This is a huge plus for a game that really wants you to roleplay while playing the game believing yourself to truly chaz it up with the Chazster. The art of the maps is also great and complement the well-drawn chibi sprites greatly. The game also has a host of cards that only existed in the anime at the time and tried to retain those effects to the best of their ability. Tag Force / Beginning of Destiny would essentially set the bedrock for how the remaining GX games would function. The other 2 titles would reuse many of the same assets, including the map and interior areas, but let's find out what those games are actually bringing to the table. Tag Force 2, which incidentally was the first one of these I played, came out on September 27th, 2007. This game features a nearly identical map to the first and adds new characters and the next part of the story for the GX anime. I guess. With new cards and new characters and some improved mechanics, this game was all set to take the dueling world by storm, if you had a PSP. It also featured who is probably the most popular of Jaden's various platonic life partners, Jesse Anderson, the second main character to be introduced with a southern accent for some reason. The same heart affinity system is used here, but it is a little more manageable to fill up those hearts since you can do it off of dueling powerful duelists, and also the amount of reactions to sandwiches has been reduced. Frankly, the amount of reaction to sandwiches should be too. Either you like it or you hate it. No need for emotional nuance about a bagel. The story revolves around individual characters this time around, rather than the relevant anime storyline. Like, Sartorius is in this game, but only as a tag duel opponent, not someone with any kind of narrative agency. No man, that's all up to you this time. You see, each character on the pages of Duel Partners has several story events that are completed by filling up their heart meter, discussed earlier. And each one has some story and usually a duel associated with it. Cards up through Tactical Evolution are available in this game, which still gives you access to a wide variety of cards, though not that many new strategies since the last one. The most notable ones are going to be Volcanic, coming from Force of the Breaker, and of course the Crystal Beasts from Tactical Evolution. The Arcana Force archetype appears here, but they would actually not be released in the OCG for a little while longer in 2008. Additionally, a system was introduced by utilizing the PSP's ability to read different UMD while a game is running, creating the UMD recognition mechanic. By putting Tag Force 1 in, you would unlock additional cards and even booster packs. This feature would continue to Tag Force 3 as well. Tag Force 2 also introduces a mainstay for the franchise, the Destiny Draw. In a pinch during a duel, you can conduct a Destiny Draw rather than your normal draw, which will pick for you one of your selected Destiny Draw cards. You actually decide this in deck edit, and technically you can just assign one card, or even basically your whole deck. It's up to you to decide what cards you would like to see in a dramatic turnabout. Overall, Tag Force 2 is a much more streamlined experience than Tag Force 1, focusing more on the social aspects of the characters than having you replace Jaden as protagonist. You've got more cards, more characters, and thus more fun to be had. Truthfully, if you clicked this video, you probably spent a bunch of time with this one in particular. Tag Force 3 is probably the most interesting to you, dear viewer, as it is one of the only games to actually depict the final season of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, one of the most fascinating Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime arcs to this day. Also, because this game never came stateside. The exact reason for this is unclear, however, according to GameFAQs, it was originally slated to release in 2010. Obviously, this never came to pass. The most likely reason I can imagine is due to the fact that they never dubbed GX for its final season. The dub of GX was famously frugal, if we're being generous, often utilizing its most high-profile talent like Sean Schemmel to voice legions of side characters on top of the supporting role they were already doing. When 4Kids did not also adapt the final arc, this was likely right in line with the perceived lack of interest in Yu-Gi-Oh! At the time, choosing instead to just move on to the next spin-off. Thus, no interest in a stateside release developed. England, though, they were all in. Story-wise, this game is all over the place. As was Tag Force 2, this game sort of has no central narrative. Characters you would expect from Season 3 are here, but they are also just here. Hell, Yubel, one of the most important and meaningful villains of the whole show, only appears as a tag opponent, and then just rolls up to the overworld after finishing Cool Jaden's story. Sorry, I should clarify. Normal Jaden is just Jaden, but fused with Yubel Jaden is Cool Jaden. The reasoning should be obvious. Anyway, that sentence might sound strange to you actually, because you heard right, this game has Season 4 characters, including Truman and Twink Supreme Yusuke Fujiwara. The story, however, only comes in the form of heart events and ending vignettes after the final one. The main story, like Tag Force 2, progresses by completing tournaments, and that can cause new characters to appear. I do wish they had the scope to actually emulate the Dark World or even do the Truman storyline fully, but getting to pretend you're friends with Bastion makes up for it in some cosmic way. The game mechanics here are pretty identical to the game previous, except of course for the addition of even more minigames. Cards included are, strangely, up to Crossroads of Chaos, which means you can collapse the fabric of time by synchro summoning on Duel Academy Island. Although this does mean that as the game reaches the later stages, you can really start to change up the flow of the game entirely. Tag Force 3 really ramps up the card game aspect, even if it doesn't bring much new to the table. It definitely added upon things that had already been there by streamlining events, making sandwiches much less frustrating, adding more minigames. It feels like the game suffers from missed expectations. Someone buying this game may want to experience the Season 3 story, but that definitely isn't what this game offers. That being said, this is the fastest and smoothest game of the trilogy, and it deserves commendations for that alone. These 3 games are some of the most well-remembered in franchise history, alongside Forbidden Memories and Duelist of the Roses. People love to be able to roleplay and live vicariously within the world of Duel Monsters. Many wish that games like these could make a grand return. I grew up slamming a bunch of time into Tag Force 2, but getting to see all 3 of them so close to each other really provided a neat glimpse into a few different years of game development. Ultimately, these 3 titles individually are totally serviceable to good. But you should really just pick one of them and dive into that one. The stories are not deep enough to warrant a marathon playthrough, but that's hardly a knock against their individual performances. It is a shame that Tag Force 3 never made its way to the US of A, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Would continue to stand strong for the next few years. Thanks so much for watching not only this video, but the entire retrospective as it exists today. This began as a simple project to teach myself video editing, and a bunch of you wanted to come along for the ride, and for that, I can always thank you. I'll be seeing you.